there, and welcome to the review of the Stargate franchise. In these podcast episodes, we'll be reviewing from the perspective of me, Layla, an avid fan of all things entertainment, and shall we say a diverse perspective, for I identify as a neurodivergent, cisgender queer woman with a physical disability who is also a licensed psychologist with complex PTSD herself, and I'm also an astrologer and tarot novice to boot. But I do believe it is all connected. So what better way to utilize these unique combination of, let's call them strengths, than to share them with the world. And that is the goal of this whole enterprise, sharing and caring. Currently, the episodes are still just reviewed by me, myself, and I, but I, for one, am mightily interested in what all of y'all think about the following. So, as I believe the arts are humanity's greatest gift, for it allows us to experience and tap into the realm of infinite possibilities, let's get started. Back. This time we will be reviewing the 17th episode of the first season called Enigma. The original air date was January 30th, 1998. The episode was written by Catherine Powers and directed by William Garrity. I think you pronounce it thusly. If not, I'm sorry. By all means, do correct me if I'm wrong. As always, we look at the title of the episode. In this case, this one kind of threw me for a loop. When I hear Enigma, the first thing that comes to mind is Alan Turing and decrypting German messages during the Second World War. But no, Enigma can also mean an inscrutable or mysterious person, which then, light bulb, made sense. For when I started to look at the translated titles of the episodes, particularly the Hungarians embraced it as they called the episode The Mysterious Ones. That would describe Omok more than Nareem. Nareem didn't seem all that mysterious to me, but nicely done. The French, though, kinda, sorta, is my favorite, particularly with the whole handling of the Tollans. Having the French call this episode Les Réfugiés, as in the refugees, and once again, it's the 17th episode of our first season. How we treat refugees. They went there. And might I add, once again, in such a way that I cannot but love this show. It makes you think. So therefore, yes, this episode might be well over 25 years old. It is still very much relevant, peeps. And the underlying message of this episode still holds very true today, which is once again the Stargate magic that I just cannot stop talking about. For this show just has it all and remains relevant to this day. And I have no fucking clue if there even is gonna be a reboot or a revamp, or like if it just stays as is and people just get to discover it, because there are still plenty of people, particularly on X, I'm finding them, or Twitter. I'm just gonna keep calling it Twitter. X is just a letter. Elon, get over it. But these actors, these storylines should be cherished as is, and people still rewatch The Godfather and Star Trek, and they were even older than Stargate. So I will not stop love bombing the shit out of Stargate. Not a lot of shows, specifically shows that have been off the air for a long time, have withstood the test of time, are still relevant, are still enjoyable to discover even 25 years later. I hope that this podcast about this show invites people to discover, rediscover, grant this show an entirely new level of appreciation by watching it from today's perspective. I will die on this hill if need be, for till my dying breath I will herald the magic that is Stargate. Because they don't make them like they used to. Not really. Not often. There are some gems here and there, but they are rare. This episode, we will be seeing some familiar faces, and we will be introduced to some lovingly new faces. And as they are just amazing characters, I just needs to take a minute to introduce them. For instance, in this episode, we will be graced by Tobin Bell, which I always refer to as that scary fella, for he scares the living daylights out of me. And I mean, the dude uses the skill well because he has quite the filmography. He is perhaps best known for his role as the iconic villain Jigsaw in the Saw film series, and hashtag fun fact, he has never been, and to this day is still not, a fan of horror movies. What I found to be a bit of a shocker was that I also read on IMDb, and I quote, "I always thought that I was gonna play romantic leads. I honestly did. I still don't think I've played the role I'm destined to play, one that shows a wholeness. I've appreciated all the roles I've played, but I mean a role that shows the fullness of my personality, not just that power guy." End quote. Hot damn. And this man has played some characters. Well, of course, there's the Jigsaw, but I also remember him from Mississippi Burning, and of course in this show as Omok. And Yeah, it's not really a very in-depth character, but still he is memorable. And he established a character, at least for me, that when he is referenced in future episodes, I immediately envisioned his countenance to go with it. And despite Omak being written as quite a one-dimensional character, I think Tobin Bell did a beautiful job because there was still so much feeling in it. And we even, at the very end, get a little tiny, one could say, smile. You really need to look for it, but I kind of saw it being there. At least the hand on his shoulder was definitely some form of approval. And I was quite saddened that we never, sorry, spoiler, that we never see Omak again. Tobin Bell always has just such a powerful presence in whatever he does. So when I then also read his beautiful quote on how he views acting, which I will be sharing in a second, for it is gorgeous and needs to be shared, I think, yeah, he may be, or we, I should say, we may have been robbed of some great work of Tobin Bell, despite all the great work he's already done. And I've acquired an entirely new respect for him. And no, I will not be watching any more Saw movies. Thank you very much. And I think this is highly, once again, underappreciated and possibly underutilized actor. I liked that he voiced Savitar in The Flash. I was always waiting for that mask to just pop off and show Tobin Bell and scare the pants off of all of us. But no, sorry, spoiler. Tobin Bell is not inside of that. Who is inside of that? Yeah. Didn't see it coming, and when I rewatched it, yeah, it was kind of obvious. But okay, I was distracted, I think, by the presence of Tom Felton, who I really tried to love. It didn't go. But that's The Flash, and this is Stargate. Here's that beautiful quote that I mentioned. I want to do anything that's well written, that reveals something of the human condition, that provides growth from material as well as the actors. I don't think about how I look necessarily, I think about what's going on for this guy and what he does and why he does it. I ask myself a whole bunch of questions and I try to answer those questions so I can ground myself in the reality of what he does. You are surrounded by the physical representations of what you do, so I try to think of acting in terms of thinking and doing. People think of it as, oh, let's get inside this guy. They think that acting is being or feeling or emoting. It's as much doing, end quote. Which I found such a beautiful, enlightened way to view acting. Just the way that he phrased that, gorgeous. I really just want to share this discovery because it made me laugh. The dude is in his 80s and yet he still has like all the social media accounts. Facebook, Twitter, although he abandoned it after what's-his-face bought it. But also on Instagram. Like the dude is on the gram. Awesome. I already had fair respect for this man, but now I just have overall respect for the beautiful, gracious, kind, knowledgeable man that he appears to be. A lot of people could, should, will learn a lot from him, for he respected every single role, be it in the background or as the lead, when it came to acting. And I think you should, because without any of those elements, the final product would not be as we know it. And again, like in the previous episodes where they have found ways to honor the crew, I love when TV shows do that. It really does take a freaking village to make a TV show, even though on screen we usually see the same 2, 3, 4, 5 faces. There's an entire village behind it. And I love that we, sometimes as viewers, as outsiders, are invited in. And to wrap up this, by now 5-minute love bombing of Tobin Bell, I'm sorry that you, as of yet, apparently have not found that character that allows you to completely embody the fullness of your personality because you have skills, for show. I mean, is it just me, or does this man have this, like, look that makes you just want to wither away and die? The irony isn't lost on me that I, too, have been accused of having a very intense glare, making it possibly a wee bit ironic that I'm scared shitless of this man. To go full circle and therapeutic on my own ass would only highlight how scared I am of my own power. I'm learning to brace that now. So there. We're already getting all deep and shrinky. Which then made me wonder, for that look or glare that I've been accused of having, I always related to my scorpionic side. So that made me wonder, does Tobin Bell have a lot of scorpionic energy as well? So I looked up his chart. Unfortunately, I couldn't find his birth time, so I don't know his ascendant or particular houses and signs. However, what I did find was that Tobin Bell has a Leo stellium, and the sun, which rules Leo, is a part of that, as are his Mercury, the way he communicates, Pluto, which probe rules Scorpio, and also the asteroid Chiron, symbolizing our poor soul wound. In Greek mythology, he is also referenced as the wounded healer. When you heal that wound, it can become your greatest strength. So, as a novice that I am, I'm guessing that that has a lot to do with it. Leo is a fire sign, and though Scorpio is a water sign, the intensity and the passion of Scorpios can sometimes be mistaken for a fire sign. So that could have something to do with it too. But once again, I would not be surprised if he does turn out to be a Scorpio rising. For your ascendant is how you come across, people's first impression of you, and from him, I'm picking up a whole lot of Scorpionic energy. And as a person with a stellium of 4 planets in Scorpio, 3 of which are personal planets, and me being accused of having a similar intense glare that apparently scares some people shitless, I couldn't help but think that this was possibly some Scorpionic energy I was picking up on. Either way, fascinating. What do y'all think? Moving on, in this episode, we also meet Garwin Sanford, a Canadian actor who plays in today's episode Narim, but he also shows up in Stargate Atlantis, though as a different character, and I wonder if I'm alone in this, but that just felt wrong to me. It was so memorable as Narim that it never felt right to me to see him in another role, and you could say kind of sort of the same character. You could call it flaw. Let's not call it a flaw. Let's call it characteristics. I don't know, I love him as Narim, but I just was annoyed in Stargate Atlantis with that character. I don't even, God honest truth, remember the name of the character that he plays in Stargate Atlantis. All I kept thinking was, no, you do not belong here. Go back. But that's me. We also meet Colonel Harold, and here I thought he was just called Harry, Maybourne, the man I have come to love to hate and hate to love, and yeah, just for that alone. He will always keep a special place in my heart as Maybourne, because you were just so good. And after this episode, you might think like, what the actual fuck? You're weird, which, granted, I own it, but trust me, it gets good. He gets good. So in this episode, we are introduced to the NID, and NID stands for National Intelligence Department, a civilian branch of the United States government, and its purpose, according to StargateFandom.com, thank you for that by the way, is to provide civilian oversight of top-secret military operations, most frequently those pertaining to UFOs or other extraterrestrial phenomenon. And they also, operate out of Area 51, because fiction, non-fiction here blend so perfectly together. With Maybourne, you kinda get a taste of what they stand for, or more importantly, what they don't stand for. So, yeah. Though I warm up to Maybourne, I do not warm up to the NID. So I wonder how y'all view them. And then last, but certainly not least, another introduction made in this episode is that of the Unmanned Aerial Vehicle, abbreviated to UAV, which is this drone before drones actually, became a thing that they used to scout further away from the gate, because the MALP just goes through and just stands next to the gate. And we've already learned from the Torment of Tantalus that it's very important to check if the DHD is present and operable. The UAV now enables Stargate Command to survey the immediate area around the gate, which is not a bad idea. Although in this particular instance, I don't know how much that thing hypothetically would have cost them, but let's just say this one was kind of like the Titanic. It went down on its maiden voyage. Anyway, beautifully utilized technology. Again, way ahead of its time. Alrighty then, that was damn near 15 minutes of introduction. Let's start reviewing the actual episode. As for always, the episode starts off with the MGM line roaring. Once again, right off the bat, I have questions. For as early as the movie, we have had the MALP that they send through prior to stepping through the actual gate, because it's safer to send an inanimate object before sending a person when you don't know what's on the other side. However, lately it seems that they just stepped right on through, not knowing what to expect on the other side. Now it seems that 17 episodes in, they have suddenly remembered, and upon arriving on the planet, they have caught a remark on it by saying, well, this wasn't shown on the probe we'd sent through earlier. And that raises for me the question of, okay, so you sent the probe ahead. How long ago was that? Because clearly shit has changed. And like, other than oxygen and checking on the DHD and seeing if it's functional, what do y'all check for before you just go like, sure, off we go? And the second question that this scene later on throughout the episode raised for me was that we discovered that the Tollans were rather an advanced civilization. So it strikes me as odd that they left behind this team that damn near partially, at the very least, perished trying to seal the gate. I mean, if the planet destroys itself, wouldn't the gate have been sealed by the lava flow, as we later on see actually happen during the episode? But anyway, my point being is it strikes me as odd and rather unbelievable that when they sent the probe through prior to their actual arrival on the planet, how is it that that first contact wasn't made right then and there? How could they not have interacted or responded or done anything concerning the gate's activation and someone or something arriving on their planet even though they were already on their way out? Or is this like, yeah, this is me overthinking again, I know. But, I love it when movies and shows make you think, even though sometimes it sends me on a spiral that I need other people to help me get out of. But yeah, that was what occurred to me watching this scene. Now, after determining that this is a place you want to stay at for too long, as Daniel goes over to the DHD to start dialing Earth again, he sees people scattered around the gate covered in volcanic ash. And then they all start checking on who's dead or alive, and it's kind of odd to me, once again, that Daniel is one of those people. Why doesn't he just continue dialing the gate? One, because if that puppy behind them blows, they need to run fast as fuck to save their own asses. And two, I don't know, bring Stargate Command up to speed that you found people on the other side of the gate and that you're in a rush to come home and that you want to take them with you and that they, I don't know, need to alert some medical personnel or something. Again, overthinking, I get it, but that would have made more sense to me that Daniel would continue to dial the gate home while the others checked. And let's be real, we only actually needed Carter to start checking bodies because her interaction with the, as we will soon learn, Tollans is the only interaction that really matters. I gotta say though, this entire scene, primo shots. Love it. Like at the beginning, the slow panning towards the gate while you hear it connecting. It's really setting the stage. Beautifully done, truly. And then we come across a fella we soon learn is called Omak. And rewatching it now, you could have just said leave us, but instead they make him say don't help us. An odd, but I also think a wise choice, because it does make the viewer go like, wait, what? Why the fuck not? Before we are ushered into the episode's introduction song, giving us a moment to stew on that very weird reaction to being rescued. That is just a wonderful introduction to Omak, because in that one phrase, you learn everything you need to know about Omak. Back on Earth, Danny and I kinda also, have to admit, my ableism was showing. Because during the episode, Daniel remarks that had it not been for the Dark Ages on Earth, the Tauri would have been able to develop technology comparable to the Tollans. When General Hammond asks Daniel if they're all descended from us, how can they be more technologically advanced than us? Which is kind of weird because we also had the Nox who were clearly a lot more advanced than us. So why this question now? And the answer is steeped in ableism, or so I learned. For many historians have disagreed with this understanding of history, with the claim that had we not had the Dark Ages, we would have been a lot more technologically advanced than we are now, because the Dark Ages chiefly affected Western Europe because it had to do with Christianity, which was predominantly present in Western Europe. Technological advancements were still being made in other areas on the planet, including the Middle East during these times. It just so happened that in Europe we were having our heads shoved so far up our own asses that anything to do with research, medical research, astronomy, astrology, just anything other than believing there's this big dude in the sky that wants to punish you for any reason, whatever reason, was our chosen lot at the time, but not everyone else's. People have fished out the good parts again, thankfully, because at the very core of every religion, there's only love, kindness, and beauty. I do believe that is the case. Therefore, I'm not hating on all religion per se. I just hate on it when people tell you what to do and force you, basically, to live by their rules. I mean, we're all humans, which is, again, also a topic that comes up during this episode. Later on, we'll get back to that. Moving on. Were y'all as surprised as Carter and, frankly, myself when she was encouraged by Hammond to take Nareem outside for a walk? And yeah, what the fuck? Isn't that like a major security risk? I mean, poor Teal'c had to stay in the mountain for months before they even let him out for a walk, according to episode Old Lazarus, right? Yeah. And though I understand that they want to use Nareem's fascination with Carter to find out more about them, it does now kind of sort of feel like they're pimping Carter out. But as it does remain PG rated and on the up and up, I guess, okay. And they do seem to share a connection that deepens throughout the episode, so okay, fine. And yeah, partly also because they were my first OTP of the show for a while there. I mean, other than Daniel and Charade, of course. But yeah, I really liked them together because you could see that the intent really was that there was a genuine connection, that Carter wasn't just faking it to get intel. Because our heroes are morally just. Otherwise, they wouldn't be heroes, right? Another thing that in this episode for me didn't get explained well enough was that they decide to give the devices back after studying them, for they have determined that it's not a weapon. But if you have no idea how it works, what it does, how can you know that it's not a weapon, for one? And two, why give them back? That seems inexplicably dumb, right? Especially considering that we learn, and hashtag nerd alert, in a conversation between Nareem and Samantha, he indicates the concept of Schrodinger's cat. I do so love that kitty in this episode. What can I say? I love kitties. Although this is a very mellow cat, I gotta say. Right, back to the concept. Schrodinger's cat is, well, as Carter explains, basically, the experiment saying that simultaneously the cat is both dead and alive, which, according to Nareem, apparently is an elementary mistake, highlighting only how primitive we really are. Oops. Carter seems to infer from that the Tollans have licked quantum mechanics. However, that is a misconception. Someone has pointed out online, I think it was on Stargate Wiki, that Nareem only indicated that the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics is incorrect. Other interpretations of quantum mechanics still hold true, including the many worlds interpretation that posits the existence of parallel universes. And, I mean, in this season alone, sorry, spoiler, we start visiting parallel universes. So this show, maybe inspired by this conversation, started in on that, and even the DC and Marvel universe seem to agree on multiverses, parallel universes are a thing, or at least plausible to be a thing, and has resulted in many an awesome movie and episode. So it's not like a new thing, because those comics have existed a long time. But yeah, some fellow, much more advanced nerd than me pointed this out, that this was a little more nuanced than the show now provided us with, once again, because that happens more than once in this episode, that they want to show how so much more advanced the Tollans are than us. Another moment like that comes up later, and I really want to know, was it intentionally to make us feel stupid, or does it just make me feel stupid because I don't get it? But yeah, coming back to that in a minute. I do so very much appreciate how they have Nareem eventually explain to Carter why they are so apprehensive of sharing their knowledge. For the Tollans have helped their neighboring planet, but with that knowledge, the inhabitants of that planet used it to make war, destroying themselves in a day. I mean, we can destroy ourselves like a gazillion times over too. Just, pop off one nuke and there we go. But still, give them knowledge, and within a day they destroy themselves. Lordy. And even though the eventual demise of their planet was caused by an extraterrestrial event, it shows eerie similarities to what we have witnessed due to our exploitation of our planet's resources and the increasingly escalating consequences of climate change. It all just hit a little close to home for me. And like I already mentioned in my prior episode sign off, this episode back in the late 90s really drove home how important it is that we preserve our planet and thus combat climate change better. Unfortunately, no such thing happened, although I do think the Paris Climate Accords were signed in 97, around the time this recorded, or apologies, the Kyoto Protocol, which was adopted on December 11th, 1997, although apparently due to a complex ratification process, it only entered into force in 2005. Oy, politics. Why do we even bother? We all know what happened since. And, I mean, still, we, once again, have sold our souls to oil companies. Or, I should say, our governments have sold all of our souls to the oil companies. I do really hope that sooner rather than later, that is going to change and we're going to start respecting our home and trying to preserve it as much as we can before it is too late. So, there, make of that what you will. For me, either way, this episode was illuminating. Imagine never hearing or seeing birds. I mean, we're already there with the bees and the butterflies. Just recently in the news, they said that this year we have dramatic decline in the bee and butterfly population, seeing that they are crucial to our ecosystem. Problem. It really just feels like a race to the finish line. Either we destroy our planet, or the sun does something weird, or an asteroid hits us. I mean, so many options. We get invaded by aliens who are fed up with our idiocy. Well, I do hope that if we ever, hopefully get visited, it's more along the lines of the Nox and the Asgard, but have we earned that right? I think some of us have, like this episode. I'm getting ahead of myself again. Wait, right! That scene explaining why they are so apprehensive sharing their knowledge. Beautiful. Love it. Works for me. Yes. Cue Tuplo and his unfortunately now concealed Croppy Toppy. He is so nice. And Omaka is so rude. But I do get where Omaki's coming from. I mean, they are way more primitive than us. For Daniel in the Broken Divide episode, guesstimated that the land of light, where Tuplo hails from, was about our Bronze Age stage of development. So yeah, that is quite a while ago, Bubba. So that Omak, though rude it may have been, declines this offer, I get. Like, genuinely. Yeah. Maybe, to retire there. But, they're still spry. They're not at the retirement age just yet. And cue now the awesome introduction of Harry Maybourne. Right after Tilk says this knowledge is far beyond that of the Goa'uld, laying it out perfectly for Maybourne to respond with, that is exactly what the President and the Joint Chiefs want to hear. For a second there, I didn't remember who they were referring to when they mentioned Colonel Kennedy, but he is that dude that interviewed Tilk in the second episode, the Enemy Within episode, where he was such a dickwad. And apparently he got promoted, for Maybourne is now his replacement, and I do so love, and yes, I have used this remark repeatedly, specifically when it comes to our own former now Prime Minister Mark Rutte, who they endearingly call Teflon Marcus, and everything just rolls right off of him because he is that much of a dick. Sorry, the remark of talk about failing upwards. That is how I now describe our former Prime Minister. For he is now promoted to like a big shot position in the NATO because they think he's so good at building bridges, I heard they say. But bridges for whom exactly? Not for the people. This motherfucker destroyed our country. Like, genuinely. Like, what the Conservatives did in the UK, he did in the Netherlands. And y'all are promoting him. Granted, we still have our heads shoved so far up our own asses. We have yet come to the point where the UK has now, in a fucking landslide, voted for the Labour Party. We are still stuck on the right-wing extremist wackadoodleness of it all. But I don't expect that to hold long, because this first week of debate apparently was so bad that I don't give it like more than 6 months, honestly. But yeah, getting there, I hope, eventually, somewhere. Anywho, failing upwards is unfortunately truly, I mean, Trump is a perfect example of that too. Apparently, when you look at Trump's astrological birth chart, it makes a lot of sense, sadly. I don't know what these people have. This is supposed to be the year of karma. The fact that these dudes are still where they are right now, I mean, karma in the UK happened. I'm still waiting for the rest of them to have finally karma bitch slap them across the face. It's just not cool, people. You should not be able to fail upwards. So, yeah, fingers crossed. Because it's only halfway through the year and miracles do happen, allegedly. But anyway, back to the episode. I love it when Maybourne says that he read about O'Neill's conflict with Kennedy, stating that that kind of attitude will not prevail with him in either direction, and having O'Neill then sarcastically respond with, I sense that. Just that banter between these two. Love it! And yeah, that's why I kind of sort of warm up to Maybourne, but not to the NID whatsoever. And rewatching it now for the third time, I noticed that only General Hammond salutes Maybourne's entry. O'Neill and Carter don't. Why is that? Was that already like giving him the proverbial finger? Which, granted. But are they supposed to salute, well, each other? I do so love that Nareem quote of what your mind doesn't know, your heart fills in. But how can Carter not understand what that means? And yes, it is beautiful, and to me quite obvious what he means, or is that just like me and my advanced emotional maturity? This wasn't that hard to understand what he meant, right? Right? Otherwise, yay me. Like, did they intentionally make her go like, I don't know? Because I didn't think that this was that hard to understand, but that's me. I wonder about y'all. I do so adore this pissing contest between Hammond and Maybourne about releasing the Tollans into NID's custody. I love the fiery response of Daniel, stating that it's about basic human rights, and that Hammond uses his position to delay Maybourne, and even pulls the card of that he's a direct line to the president. But unfortunately, Maybourne wasn't full of shit, and the president did sign off on this, basically allowing the Tollans to be exploited for forced intellectual labor and life imprisonment. In this moment, I appreciate that they let, well, at least Daniel, express his anger, saying that he voted for this president, and honey, no, you can vote for someone and believe in their message and statement and everything that they claim to stand for, but lately, disappointment all around, which seems to be, an obvious result. When Pluto moves from Capricorn into Aquarius, just a few more months, and then Pluto will leave Capricorn behind for the next 300 years. Hopefully, by the end of this year, some sanity will have been reclaimed one way or another. Because this year, the UK finally kicked out the Conservatives. That was a good first step, right? Now we need to all do that. Yeah, please. Like, I'm begging here. Please. The little huddle outside is adorable because they highlight that Daniel is completely free to be naughty. Daniel, in this episode, proudly uses his "You can court-martial me" Tilk card, and I love every second of it, truly. Well, okay, not every second. For why, oh why, when Daniel goes to Omak with a solution to their problem, does he claim to have to go with him? When Omak says that they need to escape again to send the message to the Nugs from the top of the mountain. No valid argument whatsoever is given. You could have just given him the coordinates. Your presence was not required. So why he insisted that he had to go with him? I don't know, was that just to satisfy your own curiosity? Or, for the thrill of it? Or, protect Omak in case he was once again caught? And to make sure that they didn't shoot him on sight? They should have, in my opinion, clarified this. Otherwise, why was he so adamant and Omak so willing, without any argument, to take Daniel with him? That's the thing that stumped me the most. Although I do so very much like the scene with the hand holding and that little moment on top of the mountain. That was nice. But this is also the moment where I kind of felt stupid, for Omak tries to explain to Daniel how that message that he sent to the Nox can travel faster than the speed of light, and he tries to explain it to Daniel with folding the stick, but that then doesn't mean, folding space? My fellow nerds, help a girl out. What he said, does that make sense to anyone? Please do share. When the Reem divulges that one of the functions, at least, of their little gizmos is to record emotions, in this moment, awfully handy. But also, that fucker must have a seriously sped up playback mode, because for all the hours that they've spent together, she is apparently able to experience his emotions in 10 seconds flat? By the way, a therapist would is salivating at a gizmo like this. If you had access to a fucker like this during couples therapy, your problems wouldn't be solved like that. Because you have nowhere to hide, and let's be real, the only true way to win a relationship is to be honest about your feelings, about your thoughts, because behavior can be misleading. So with this, you immediately know where someone truly stands. But other than that, a bit weird. Although it does, I guess, allow the romance that started to spark between Nareem and Carter to speed up to the point where we've learned that we share a custom of kissing. Yeah, and so much more. But unfortunately, we don't get to that because our adorable little Daniel interrupts with a little passive-aggressive whoopsie. He acknowledges with the whoops that, oh dear, I've interrupted something. But he doesn't leave. He doesn't ask if he should give them a moment. He basically just goes yeah, hi, that's nice. I need her. Other than that, it was a cute scene. And funny with Daniel's whoop. Kind of lightened the mood again. the sass in this episode. I love it. This next scene where the airman informs General Hammond and Maybourne that the Tollans have disappeared, where Maybourne goes like, what do you mean disappeared? And she goes like, puff. I mean, for real. Are you allowed to sass a colonel like that? And please say yes, because that would so be me, showing that line of sass. But this once again highlighted to me the stupidity of returning their thingamabobs even after they learned that they could use it to walk through walls. So once again, why didn't you confiscate them when you found out that they could use it to walk through walls? But I guess if you really want to continue on that line of thought, you could suggest that one of the SG-1 members could have snuck in one of those devices to help the Tollans escape. And maybe we didn't have enough editing room for that, so that's why they did it this way? Maybe? I guess, but if you want to make the storyline make sense, this wasn't it. Other than that, this whole sassiness made up for it, pretty much. Next scene, I guess it's the first season and they were still figuring out the dialing in and dialing out sequence, but that to me was a little sloppy. But it was a nice wound up to reintroducing Laia. Yay! I do so very much love her. And then it's rather nifty where she just waves her hand and the gate is once again connected. No dialing apparently needed. For a second there, I was kind of hoping that Laia could make Maybourne disappear, but then again, no, there was still so much fun to be had with Maybourne. Plus, pacifism was the Nox's way to go. So, alright then, we'll keep him for now. All in all, good episode. What I really loved about this episode was the Tollans were made up of male, female, and people of color, although slightly disappointing that the only people that we interacted with were the two white men. I did love the OTP magic of Carter and Nareem. I love the sass in this episode. Everyone was just sassing Maybourne. Love it. I appreciated the fact that they, even though it was the first season, tackled the unfortunate though still very relevant topic of how we treat our refugees and how our leaders can be disappointing when it comes to shit like that. I love that we reintroduced connections made over the brief course of the show, reminding the viewer what it is truly all about, or what it should be about. It's not about the technology that you acquire. It's about the friends you make along the way. Also, it shows that even when the more advanced societies decide not to share their technology for our own protection, we can still greatly benefit from their friendship. For now, they once again showed the Nox that maybe not everyone on planet Earth is advanced, but they are good people. And to the Tollans, we are considered primitive, but also not all of us. And that even despite our primitiveness, we can still help each other out. If not on a technological level, then on a humanitarian or on a romantic, let's make babies level. Because they would make pretty smart babies. A girl can dream. Our next episode, Solitudes, which will turn out to be a pivotal episode, for we once again learn a lot about the gate, how it works, what happens when it malfunctions, and we have a delightful moment between Carter and O'Neill. And I don't know if they left it in every version of the episode, or that at some point they deleted it from the episode and put it in the deleted scenes, but there is once again a delightfully funny MacGyver reference. Even one more extended version of it, like, hilarious, where she really goes on a rant. And y'all might have thought that Grey's Anatomy started off with the Mick references, but Carter's McUseless, love it. Just, yes, that one is not in the episode, I know that, but it was hysterical. So go look it up, or add it to my link tree, so that you can more easily find it. It's worth the watch. Also, in this episode, we meet Master Sergeant Sylvester Seiler, who is Richard Dean Anderson's stunt double. And I found it so fucking awesome that he not only has a role on screen with Richard Dean Anderson, so he's not just his stunt double where we never see his face. He actually got a talking role on the show, and throughout the years we see him multiple times. So yes, Sergeant Seiler has a special place in my heart for that too. Also, I remember seeing him once on a Supernatural episode, although there he didn't talk, which was a shame. But I always love to see crew members getting shown the love, because now everyone will know who Dan Shay is, and once you know, you know. So when there's a stunt with Richard Dean Anderson, once you know where to look, you start recognizing when it's Richard Dean Anderson and when it's Dan Shay. Or at least, like, Dan Shay's head is a bit more round. All in all, that was just another hashtag fun fact to look out for in the upcoming and future episodes. So I'm gonna leave it at that. I hope to see you back here for the next review of the episode Solitude. For additional reviews and content on a variety of subjects in addition to this franchise, come check out our podcast channel, as well as our Instagram account, Let's Review with Layla and You, for additional in-depth content, as well as provide us with a place for reciprocation where we can all share and exchange our ideas, thoughts, and whatever else we feel like sharing with the world. So come meet up with me, myself, and I, drop a comment, give us a follow, and come share what y'all think. And to truly make this the all-inclusive podcast we set it out to be, come visit us in the RSS community where all our episodes come with a transcript. I do hope to see you there!